The entire executive floor was decorated with blue and silver balloons, our company colors, of course. The conference room held a massive cake in the center, 500% growth written across it in thick blue icing. Everyone was on their feet, clapping, smiling, all eyes fixed on me as I walked in, a full standing ovation like something out of a corporate highlight reel. 500% growth in 18 months during a recession. I remember thinking, this is it. This is the moment when all those late nights, all the skipped vacations, all the strategy sessions that bled into mornings finally mean something. My boss, Luther, our CEO, wrapped an arm around my shoulders, squeezing with that proud, almost paternal smile I had been chasing for 3 years. Absolutely exceptional work, he said. Let's hear it again for the growth our marketing team has achieved. The applause swelled, someone even whistled, and my entire team looked at me with that mixture of respect and validation that says they believed in me, that backing me had been the right bet. Luther raised his hand for silence. Today marks a turning point for our company, he said in that ceremonial tone he reserved for bonuses or major announcements. With this momentum, we need fresh, forward-thinking leadership to carry us into the next phase. I nodded, already bracing myself for the promotion they had dangled in front of me for 18 months, the VP role that had been hinted at in reviews and late-night conversations. Then the door opened, and in walked a kid. Not metaphorically, an actual kid. Early 20s, flawless haircut, a designer suit that didn't quite fit his frame yet. Luther's smile stretched even wider. I'd like everyone to meet Drew, my son. He'll be stepping in as our new vice president of marketing, effective immediately. The silence that followed was crushing. Drew walked straight toward me, hand extended, confidence borrowed rather than earned. I've heard so much about you, he said. Dad says you've built an incredible foundation for me to build on. Foundation, like I was poured concrete so a Nepo baby could stack his corner office on top. I shook his hand, smiled, congratulated him, all while knowing the emails I'd sent that morning to our 5 biggest clients were already sitting unread in their inboxes, and my lunch meetings for next week were already locked in. Hey, I'm Naomi Reed. I'm 34, and if you're trying to decide whether I'm the villain or the hero here, I've honestly stopped caring. Before I tell you what happened next, hit that like button and subscribe because this gets messy and it's a ride worth taking. Leave a comment if you've ever watched your work get handed to someone who never had to earn a single thing. I read everyone. Back in that conference room, people cut cake and offered stiff congratulations to a kid who had never managed so much as a lemonade stand, while I stood there feeling like my career was bleeding out quietly on the carpet. 3 years at this company, 12-hour days, working through pneumonia last winter because missing targets wasn't an option. As people started filing out, Luther pulled me aside. Naomi, I need you to help Drew transition, show him the ropes, introduce him to the clients. You know how this works. I nodded while inside I was doing the math. I had just been demoted without my title ever changing. I would be doing the VP job while Junior collected the credit. Of course, I said, happy to help Drew succeed. Luther squeezed my shoulder again. You're a team player, Naomi. That's what I've always appreciated about you. Team player, the corporate shorthand for a woman who doesn't make noise when she's sacrificed. I went back to my office, closed the door, and sat down. No tears, no rage, just an eerie calm, because something inside me had finally snapped clean in two. You know that feeling when disappointment is so complete it flips into clarity? That's where I was. Perfect, crystalline clarity. My phone buzzed. A text from a friend in accounting. What the hell just happened? Call me now. I didn't call her. Instead, I opened my laptop and pulled up the dossier I'd been quietly building for 6 months. I wasn't naive. I'd seen the signs when Luther started bringing Drew to quarterly meetings, when he interrupted my presentations with his so-called fresh perspectives from someone who had never worked a day in this industry. The dossier contained client histories, campaign strategies, internal communications, but most importantly, it documented the truth about our biggest client, Westbrook Industries. They accounted for 40% of our revenue, and Luther had been falsifying performance metrics to keep them locked in. I discovered it about 3 months earlier, and instead of reporting it, I documented everything. Insurance, I told myself. Drew knocked on my office door around 4:30. "Hey, got a minute? Dad thought we should start the transition today." He sat across from me, crossing one leg over the other, inspecting his manicured nails. "So, what should I know first?" I smiled, professional and warm. "Let's start with the client roster. We'll go through them one by one." For the next hour, I gave him exactly what he expected: high-level summaries, surface explanations, nothing he couldn't find in a quarterly report. He scribbled a few notes, nodded often, checked his phone more times than I could count. "This is really helpful," he said as he stood. "Dad's taking me to dinner with the Westbrook team next week. Maybe you could prep me?" "Actually," I said, "I already have a lunch scheduled with Marcus Westbrook tomorrow. Routine check-in. You're welcome to join us." Panic flashed across his face. "Tomorrow I have a golf thing with your fraternity brothers," I finished for him. "No problem. I'll reschedule for next week so you can attend." Relief softened his shoulders. "That'd be great, thanks." After he left, I sent a text to Marcus Westbrook. "Looking forward to our lunch tomorrow. I have some important information to share." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my balcony 15 floors up, watching city lights blink on and off, thinking about loyalty, about value, about what happens when you give everything to a company that treats you as replaceable. My sister called just after midnight. "Mom said you sounded off earlier. Everything okay?" I told her about the promotion, about Drew, about standing there eating cake that celebrated my success while simultaneously erasing me. "Quit," she said, without hesitation. "With your resume, you could walk into any firm in this city." It's not that simple. Why not? Why not, indeed. Pride, time invested, unfinished business. "I'm not done yet," was all I said. The next morning, I dressed carefully. Dark blue suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back. Professional, forgettable. The kind of woman who gets passed over while standing right in front of you. Marcus Westbrook was already seated when I arrived. Early 50s, old money, the kind of man who still calls women in business gals without irony. "Naomi," he said, standing. "Always a pleasure. Luther tells me you've been doing outstanding work." I smiled. That's actually what I wanted to talk about. For 20 minutes, I walked him through real performance data versus what we'd been reporting. Emails, documentation, proof. The discrepancies were serious enough to cross into fraud territory. His face darkened by the minute. "Are you telling me Luther has been lying to me for 3 years?" "Not 3, I corrected gently. "It started 18 months ago when I took over the department and implemented changes that actually drove growth." "Why show me this?" he demanded. "You know this could end our contract." I took a sip of water. Calm, measured. I'm starting my own firm. Smaller, focused, fully transparent. I'd like Westbrook to be my first client. He stared at me. "You're blackmailing me." "I'm offering a choice. Stay with a company that deceives you or move to one built on honesty. I'm not asking for an answer today." I slid my business card across the table. Simple, elegant. Reed Strategy Group, silver lettering. I'd had them printed 2 months earlier. "One more thing," I added. "I have lunch scheduled with Luther and his son next week. I haven't mentioned any of this to them." "What exactly are you doing?" he asked, pocketing the card. "I'm not playing," I said. "That's the difference between me and Luther." Over the next 5 days, I met with our other 4 major clients. Same pattern every time. Documentation, transparency, a card, no pressure. Drew followed me around the office, asking basic questions about systems I'd built years earlier. I answered every one, calmly and thoroughly, introduced him to the team, walked him through analytics. "You're being really cool about this," he said on Friday. "Dad thought you might be difficult." "Why would I be?" I said. "It's just business, right?" He nodded, relieved. "Exactly." The following Tuesday, we met at Delino's, Luther's favorite overpriced steakhouse. Luther ordered expensive wine, talked about golf, introduced Drew as the fresh blood we needed. Marcus was polite, reserved. His eyes flicked to me occasionally, but I kept my face neutral. Eventually, Luther said Drew would be personally taking over the Westbrook account. "We want to give you our top-tier focus." Marcus dabbed his mouth. "Actually, Luther, I've been meaning to talk about our contract." Luther's smile held, but his eyes sharpened. "Of course, we're always open to adjustments." "It's not an adjustment. We're terminating." The silence that followed was even heavier than the one in that balloon-filled conference room. Luther's smile froze. "Terminating? We've been partners for 10 years. If there's an issue—" "The issue is integrity," Marcus said, "or rather, your lack of it." Luther's eyes flicked to me, then back to Marcus. "I don't understand. Naomi has shown me the actual performance metrics for our campaigns compared to what you've been reporting to us." Drew looks confused. "What's he talking about, Dad?" Luther's face has gone pale. "Marcus, whatever you think you've seen, I'm sure there's a simple explanation." "Save it," Marcus says, standing. "We've already signed with Reed Strategy Group, effective immediately." He nods at me, drops his napkin on the table, and walks out. The look Luther gives me, if hatred could burn, I'd be ash on that restaurant floor. "What did you do?" he whispers. I take a sip of the expensive wine he ordered. "Nothing you wouldn't have done. It's just business, right?" I wish I could tell you that was the end of it, that one client was enough to make my point, but revenge is like those fancy multi-course meals. Once you've had a taste, you want the full menu. Before Luther could even process what happened with Westbrook, the other 4 clients called terminating all signing with Reed Strategy Group. So, here's where you need to decide if you're with me for the rest of this story, because it gets darker. If you're still here, hit that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me if you think I went too far or not far enough. After that lunch where Westbrook publicly fired Luther's firm, the restaurant staff practically had to peel him off the ceiling. His face went through this fascinating color transformation, white to red to a disturbing shade of purple I'd never seen on a human being before. "You ungrateful," he hissed across the table, "after everything I've done for you." Drew just sat there, mouth slightly open, looking between us like he was watching a tennis match he never bought tickets for. I placed my napkin on the table and stood. "Thank you for the opportunity, Luther and Drew." I turned to him with my most professional smile. "Best of luck with your new position. I'm sure you'll grow into it." As I walked out, I could hear Luther already on his phone, voice tight with panic, probably calling his lawyers. But here's the beautiful thing about documentation. I had copies of everything, every falsified report, every email where Luther directed me to adjust numbers, every single receipt. By the time I reached my car, my phone was blowing up. First, from accounting, "What did you do?" Then my team members, one after another, then the COO. I turned my phone off and drove straight to my new office space, a modest suite I'd leased 2 weeks earlier. The next morning, the company's stock had dropped 12%. Losing 5 major clients representing over 70% of your revenue will do that. Luther called me 17 times. I let every call go to voicemail. On the 18th call, I picked up. "You have exactly 30 seconds, I said. "Name your price," he growled. "Whatever you want. Come back, bring the clients, and I'll make you executive vice president." I actually laughed. "That's your offer? A better title at a company that's currently in free fall?" "What do you want, Naomi? Money? Take it. A board seat? It's yours." I wanted recognition for my work, I told him. I wanted what I'd earned. But you couldn't stand the idea that a woman built something valuable in your company, could you? So you handed it to your son, who couldn't tell a marketing strategy from a grocery list. This isn't about Drew. It's exactly about Drew and your ego and the fact that you think loyalty flows only upward. "I'll sue you for client theft," he threatened, "for corporate espionage." "Go ahead," I said calmly, "and I'll submit all my evidence of fraud to the SEC. See who comes out worse." After a long silence, he asked, "Is this what this is? Blackmail?" "No, Luther, this is consequences." I hung up and blocked his number. Over the next month, my new company grew faster than I'd anticipated, not just with the 5 clients I'd taken, but with 3 more who'd heard through industry channels what had happened. Turns out Luther had been playing the same games with multiple clients. My former team members started reaching out one by one. First Amara, my brilliant analytics manager, then Kai, our creative director. Within 6 weeks, I'd hired 7 people from my old department, bringing their expertise, client relationships, and, most importantly, their loyalty. The messages from Luther came through other channels: mutual connections, industry events, all the same theme. He was willing to settle, to make peace. I ignored them all. Then one evening, after everyone had left the office, there was a knock on my door. It was Drew. He looked different, thinner, the expensive suit now properly tailored, but somehow less shiny, the swagger replaced with something approaching humility. "Can we talk?" he asked. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. He sat down, rubbing his palms on his knees. "The company's filing for Chapter 11 next week." I nodded. This wasn't news to me. I still had friends in their finance department. "Dad's being investigated by the SEC," he continued, "and 3 other clients have filed lawsuits." "That sounds like a Luther problem," I said. Drew looked up, meeting my eyes directly for perhaps the first time. "I didn't know about the falsified reports, I swear. Would it have mattered if you did?" He thought about it, then shook his head slowly. "Probably not. Not then." At least he was honest. "I'm not here to ask for your help," he said, "or forgiveness. I wanted you to know that I see it now, what he did to you, what I was part of." I studied him for a moment. "Why are you really here, Drew?" He reached into his jacket and pulled out a flash drive. "This has everything. Dad's offshore accounts, the shell companies, the client lists he's been hiding from the board. He's been siphoning money for years." I didn't reach for it. "Why give this to me?" "Because you're the only one who wasn't afraid to stand up to him," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "And because I've spent my entire life watching him crush people who got in his way, including my mom." This was new information. Luther's ex-wife had vanished from the company narrative years ago. "He drove her to a breakdown," Drew continued, "then used it to get full custody of me and control of her shares in the company. He's not a good person, and I don't want to be him anymore." I finally took the flash drive. "What do you expect me to do with this?" "Whatever you think is right," he said, standing. "That's all I wanted to say." After he left, I sat there turning the flash drive over in my hands. I should have felt triumph, vindication. Instead, I felt tired, the kind of bone-deep exhaustion that comes after months of channeling rage into action. I plugged in the flash drive. Drew hadn't exaggerated. Luther had been stealing from his own company for over a decade. Millions siphoned through elaborate financial schemes, client contracts with hidden clauses, evidence of tax fraud that would make an IRS agent salivate. What happened next is where people usually divide on whether I'm the villain or the hero in this story. I didn't go to the SEC. I didn't call the police. Instead, I called Elliot Westmore, the business reporter who'd been covering Luther's company's decline. "I have a story for you," I said, "but I need certain assurances." The next morning, his exposé hit. It detailed every aspect of Luther's fraud except the parts involving his son. The article mentioned an anonymous insider who provided documentation. By noon, Luther's company had halted trading. By evening, he was being led out of his office building by federal agents, cameras flashing in his face. I watched it all unfold on the news, sitting in my living room with a glass of wine. No cheering, no celebration, just closure. 3 days later, Drew showed up at my office again. "Thank you," he said simply, "for leaving me out of it." I nodded. "What will you do now?" He shrugged. "Start over somewhere new. Maybe actually learn the business from the ground up." "Good luck with that." He turned to leave, then paused. "He always said you were the smartest person in the company, even before everything. He was afraid of you." "I think he should have been afraid of underestimating me," I replied. After Drew left, Amara came into my office. "Was that who I think it was?" "Yes." I looked out my window at the city skyline and thought, "Nothing. It's over." But it wasn't quite over. The industry fallout continued for months. Luther's trial became a cautionary tale in business ethics courses. His company was acquired for pennies on the dollar by a competitor. Former employees scattered to various firms, many landing at mine. 6 months after I started Reed's strategy group, we moved to a larger office. A year later, we were handling accounts twice the size of my former clients. I hired 30 people, then 50. On the second anniversary of that balloon-filled conference room humiliation, I received a letter, no return address. Inside was a news clipping about Luther's sentencing, 15 years for fraud, embezzlement, and tax evasion. Scrawled at the bottom in handwriting I didn't recognize, "The house of cards always falls eventually." I never found out if it was from Drew or someone else. It didn't matter. Last month, Reed's strategy group was acquired by one of the largest marketing conglomerates in the country. The terms included full autonomy for me and my team and a board seat for yours truly. The press release cited our unprecedented growth and industry-leading client retention. The irony isn't lost on me. I built something from the ashes of betrayal that ended up more valuable than what was taken from me. So that's my story. Not a clean, neat revenge fantasy where I walked away after destroying my enemy. The reality was messier, more complicated. It cost me friendships, sleep, and probably a few years off my life from stress. Was it worth it? I still ask myself that question. Luther lost everything. His company, his freedom, his reputation. His son lost his inheritance and his name. I gained a successful company and industry respect. But the woman who stood in that conference room eating celebration cake while being publicly replaced, she's gone. In her place is someone harder, sharper, less willing to trust. If there's a lesson here, maybe it's this. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't what you do to others, but what you build from what they tried to take from you. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe. I'd love to know in the comments whether you think I went too far, not far enough, or if you've ever had to rebuild after someone tried to destroy what you created. Your stories matter to me because they remind me that mine isn't unique. We're all fighting battles others can't see. Thank you for listening. This is Naomi Reed reminding you that the best revenge isn't served cold. It's served successful.